So my team that I have with the most at stake, and we've talked about this multiple times. So this is going to be uh put the ribbon on it
Audio Jungle.
and it's over. I think the last time we talked about it, we cut it completely. The Eagles have one of the easiest schedules in the entire NFL this season. They have an absolute stacked, star-studded offense, an absolute stacked defense. Kellen Moore as an OC, Vic Fangio as a DC. This team has absolutely by far the most at stake this season. I think probably what sticks out to me the most of who has the most at stake is Nick Sirianni, because I'm kind of sitting here thinking I used to honestly really like Nick Sirianni. And it kind of the one reference that I'd kind of think of whenever I think of him is like when that scene in Step Brothers when they're interviewing for that job and they're wearing tuxedos and the boss is like super fired up. And then after a while, he's kind of just like, well, these tuxedos kind of seem like a little fucked up now. And like, that's the exact
because they
vibe
fart
that
and
Nick,
stuff.
yeah, that's like the exact vibe that Nick Sirianni gives off, where it's like, if the vibes are good, everything's great, and he's a great head coach. But the second everything starts getting fucked up, you're kind of sitting around and being like, well, what does this guy do? What is his
Correct.
plan? And like, what's happening? Because you have now had coordinators leave the building for jobs. And now you've had coordinators leave the building because they've been fired. And now you have a new set of coordinators. Nick Sirianni has the absolute most at stake this season. He's on the absolute hot seat, and this feels like his last real chance to get this right. And if he doesn't at least win a playoff game, it feels like he's probably out the door.
Yeah. Um, I completely agree with you. I think that scene from Step Brothers was probably like the perfect way to say it. Um, if you're going to be that type of guy as a head coach, corny, you have to win football games. Otherwise, exactly what you said is the aura that you give off as a coach, where everything's great, like we love it, like maybe it is corny, but we can get behind it. Once you start losing and you're still corny, as we both know, like Eagles fans, me myself, I'm included, that shit looks 10 times worse. So from a hot seat standpoint, couldn't agree more. I think that at the bare minimum, I think they might have to win 2 playoff games.
Yeah.
You can't have another first round exit, even if you lose on like a last second field goal. I think even if that happens, he's out the door. There
Yeah.
is too much talent on both sides of the football for this team to not win at least one playoff game this season. So I think you're right. I think I had them down as my other team. I was hoping that you would talk about them because I feel like I'm a broken record talking about the Eagles a lot. So I'm glad that you were the one to mention it. But
Just
you said everything spot on.
yeah, and you kind of look at what they've given him, what Howie has given him is like you literally look in that offensive skill position group and you're like, okay, we have a $250 million quarterback. We have Saquon Barkley, who from a name standpoint and from from like a like what he could potentially be standpoint is like one of the
From a
best running
ceiling.
backs.
Yeah.
Yeah, ceiling standpoint, one of the best running backs in the NFL. You have an extremely expensive wide receiver in AJ Brown, and then you sign another big deal, extremely expensive wide receiver in Devonta Smith. You have Dallas Goddard. There's really no excuse from at all in my head, at least. Like you have so much invested in this team. This team is all in win now mode. You go out and you hire those two coordinators. I just think that like you said, me like you're right. I kind of downplayed it a little bit. This team at least needs to make it to the NFC Championship, if not the Super Bowl. Otherwise, this season is complete failure.
I don't realistically think you can look at it any different. And I know that other Eagles fans are probably going to sit there and agree with us because a season that ended the way that it did last year, I'm pissed off about it. I know every other Eagles fan is pissed off about it. Howie did a phenomenal job adding at places of need in this offseason to improve this roster on paper. And it's not like the Eagles even needed to go out there and sign Saquon for their offense to be considered one of the better ones in the NFL, I would say.
But they did.
But they did. So
Yeah.
there's no excuse. They have to go out there and play very well this season. And I think it's got to be 2 playoff games.
And then even where I think probably we could sit here and be like, okay, like we're fine with the entire team, but the secondary and the linebacking core like sucks. Okay, well you go and sign Devin White. He's won a Super Bowl and has been in the league, played in a lot of big games. Then you go and you draft Quinyon Mitchell, who was a lot of the people's top corner on the board this year. Then you go and draft Cooper DeJean in the second round, who was a very hot name this draft cycle. So you get kind of these guys to fill in these positions of need where like, okay, like we just boosted these rooms up from what they were. Like we have guys in there, Slay can still play, but we brought younger guys in here to boost up this room even more. Linebacking core boosted up even more. It just feels like this team doesn't have a weak spot on it. So I will be interested to see if there are any weak spots that are exposed throughout the course of the season and how they react to this, because it feels like if the Eagles get punched in the mouth, that this team is like almost like mental midgets in a way where like they can't handle adversity, because we watched them start to handle adversity last year and we watched the whole thing crash and burn. So I hope that that was a last year's problem and it wasn't a Sirianni problem. And Sirianni can, even if there is a rough patch during the season, that Sirianni can rally these guys and get them back to where they need to be. Because I think that I speak for 90% of people that watch football. That is like, if you see a team this talented, you obviously want to see them do really well because you want them to live up to expectation.
Yeah, I still don't have like a great feel as to what happened last season that like everybody had issues with, and like AJ Brown going um on the radio and like kind of talking to all those guys. Like I don't know. I don't know if that's my favorite move, but
No.
I hope that whatever the issue was last year, it's fully resolved, or those people are no longer in the building and they can just focus on going out and playing football. I obviously think you're going to lose games. That's just part of it. You're going to make mistakes. That's just part of it. But you have to be, there was no adjustments that were made that entire season um, on either side of the ball. It felt like on a week to week basis. So, like, that's my biggest thing. And I think that's probably the most important thing. And one of the things that I'm looking forward to with these new coordinators is how are these guys going to adjust on a week to week basis if something isn't working? Because there's talent all over the field on both sides of the ball. It's just a matter of putting it in the right spot to be successful. So aside from having Saquon Barkley, like that's what I'm looking forward to.
Last thing then to completely end the entire Eagles discussion is, if somebody in the comments, please let me know, what the fuck does Nick Sirianni do? Thank you.
Audio Jungle.